Hello, welcome back to my song stories. This is in conjunction and as a precursor to my book Sticks and Stones, My Life in Words, which will be released at the end of September. I just thought I'd give you a little bit of insight into some of the songs that I'm including in that book. And today's choice is I think, quite a pivotal song, really, in lots of ways. It was one of the songs on the Big Bad EP, and it is Sex in Cars. Now, the Big Bad EP in general, I mean, I could have included any of those songs, from that EP, because it kind of rescued us, that EP did. We'd had this sort of disaster with 90 in the Shade, and Polydor had lost confidence in the band, really, because it wasn't an instant hit, that sort of thing. And we also felt that the production was far too, I think, polished, really, and didn't deliver the energy of the band at all. As much as we loved working with Jimbo Barton, the producer, it was kind of maybe a little a little bit too much too soon in lots of ways. I mean, we ended up working with Jimbo, of course, on the second full-blown album, Young Gods, but I'll come to that later. So yeah, Sex in Cars, interesting song. I remember exactly how we wrote that. We were working in the Barn Studios, our rehearsal studios in Rillington, near Scarborough. It was a place that we had as a constant rehearsal space, and we got that just after we got our record deal, really. And we set up shop in that place, and it became, I guess, like a bit of a sort of, I don't know, like an experimental room. It felt like a home to us, really. We were there all the time. We used to rehearse, goodness me, sometimes 5 days a week, and it was isolated, and it was a place that we set up all our stuff, and we never took it down, so we could just turn up and turn on and get on with it, sort of thing. So it was a very productive place. I remember having lots and lots of great moments of revelation in that space, and one of which was this song. And this, we did actually write this before Dave Hopper left the band, actually, funny enough. And we were working on new ideas and all the rest of it. And it kind of just, one of those songs that sort of popped into being, And I remember Bruce coming up with a riff, and I immediately came up with the title "Sex in Cars." I don't even know where that came from. I guess that might be self-explanatory. But really, again, it was, it was in that bracket of songs that we were, I think, rediscovering ourselves, or discovering ourselves, in terms of wanting to be a full-blooded rock band, and we were listening to a lot of Van Halen and Boston, and these kind of like really bright American bands, and also Def Leppard were a big influence at the time, and of course Bon Jovi. And it was, I think, all of those things combined with the fact that we were heading into a record deal, because record deals take a long time to sign. I remember when we got the indication that we were going to get signed to Polydor, we were going to be offered a record deal by Polydor Records. We'd been doing some gigs with Magnum, and we got our record deal essentially kind of confirmed one night after we played Preston Guild Hall with Magnum. And I and the manager went down to the Piccadilly Hotel in Manchester to sort of thrash out the terms of the deal, in a way, And I think it was really on the balance, I remember that Susan Collins, who was the A&R lady, and John Williams, who was the head of Polydor A&R at the time, they came up to see us in Preston, and I got the impression that they weren't actually quite as, they were maybe on the fence. I don't think Susan was, but I think John was. He was an old school guy, and very, very experienced fella. And I don't know whether he saw, in honest truth, I don't know whether he saw the sort of a future in Little Angels. But anyway, we went down to to the hotel, and we had this conversation. And I sort of battered them into submission, I think, really, with my enthusiasm and all the rest of it. And I think the result of getting that promise for a record deal, again, gave us a real kick. And we went into the rehearsal room, and we didn't come out of that place until we had a whole plethora of new material, new ideas. And like I say, one of which was Sex in Cars. And again, it's not my finest moment as a lyricist, but I've included it in the book because it was a real favourite. It kind of strangely took us from being a kind of, maybe not, bit of a laughing stock in a way. I think there was a kind of bit of a, people were sort of, I got the impression, I might be wrong about this, but I got the impression that we were being sort of chuckled about behind hands, in the media, especially at Kerrang magazine and things like that, who just didn't like us. I think they saw us as a kind of strange northern rock band with sort of fluffy blonde hair, a fluffy blonde-haired singer who was screeched a lot, and that was kind of it, But the Big Bad EP really became sort of, I think, the launch pad for everything that we went and did after that fact, because we worked with a great producer on it, Mark Opitz, who totally changed us as a band. He was an Australian producer who had worked with In Excess in their early years, and he came in and revolutionised the way that we arranged songs. He was very to the point. He came into a rehearsal space that we were using in London at the time, Easy Studios, when we were working on the songs for the EP, and he gave some very simple pointers, cut your first, second verse in half, make sure the kick drum patterns 4 on a bar on the choruses, that sort of thing. And it was a revelation to us. And so going in and recording that EP changed a number of things. It changed the way that we looked at our music. It changed the way that we recorded. It changed the way that we regarded each other. And it changed the attitude of Polydor, because She's a Little Angel was on that EP. And obviously it totally changed everything, because we did our first Top of the Pops performance with She's a Little Angel from that. But I think for me, the key song really was Sex in Cars. It became a real live favourite. And because it's kind of slightly teenage risque, if you like, even though we were in our 20s, it was a sort of an indication that we could do that stuff. We were able and willing to take part in the kind of, I guess, the sort of standard rock and roll attitudes. And it did us a lot of good and did us a lot of favours. And it still remains, I think, a fan favourite. So, despite the words not being amazing, although I do like some of the ideas of it. I mean, I always remember Dave Hopper. Sadly, obviously, he left the band shortly after. But I always remember him saying, "Oh, I love the way you sing Scrapyard," because that's part of the whole thing about being a lyricist, is that you have to find words that sound good. It's not just about the poetry. It's about how you couple things together and how they sound, especially in songs. You have to make them sound good against a certain chord or in a space or in a rhythm. And so you're always looking for ways of the rhythms to, create that sort of sense of flow and how they scan, what we call scan. So I do think there are some good moments, and I actually think that's where my humour started to appear. I think prior to that, I don't know whether my sort of natural humour, if you like, that I know that I have as a writer now, was coming through. I think I was just too young in lots of ways, and I do think that Sex in Cars was a kind of tongue-in-cheek, no pun intended, way of, it was a tongue-in-cheek sort of way of looking at sort of teenage romance, I guess.